if Paul's epistle to the Galatians were published in Christianity Today, if it were sent as a manuscript to a Christian publisher, do you think it would get printed today? I'll bet it wouldn't. They just have way too many considerations to keep their business afloat. Dear Christian publisher, or Christianity Today, if you like, in response to Paul D. Apostle's article, these are some of the letters to the publisher, in response to Paul D. Apostle's book about the Galatian church, I have to say how appalled I am by the unchristian tone of this hit piece. Why the negativity? Has he been to the Galatian church recently? I happen to know some people at that church, and they're the most loving, caring people I've ever met. Now, that was signed, by the way, from Phyllis Snodgrass, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Is it possible that the Galatian church had some people that were doing some good things? Of course. Is it possible that there were some people who were flourishing spiritually? Absolutely. Does that mean that Paul couldn't criticize the Galatians for the false teaching that was being introduced into the body? Of course not. But those are exactly the types of responses and critiques that you get from people today for critiquing false teaching. Now, believe me, there's a lot of people who are in the critiquing false teacher business that should get fired. They don't know the first thing about it. And the first thing about critiquing is asking the question, why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing up this person? Is it really out of love for the person, for the truth, for the sake of the church, for the sake of God? Is that my motivation? That's if you can't jump over that hurdle, sit down and zip. That's got to be the motivation for judging anybody. We're not tabloid journalists. We're not, sorry for this, Fox News. We're Christians. We don't judge the way the world does. Dear editor, how arrogant of Mr. Apostle to think he has the right to judge these people and label them accursed. Isn't that God's job? Sorry. I've just had this email 100 times. Regardless of this circumcision issue, these Galatians believe in Jesus just as much as he does. And it's very pharisaical to condemn them just because they differ on such a secondary issue. Well, it's not a secondary issue. It's clearly a primary issue, which is why Paul said, you're accursed if you believe it. Furthermore, yes, they can claim to love God, but if they don't love God rightly and believe in grace alone, then they are not his. Can't we just focus on our common commitment to Christ and furthering his kingdom instead of tearing down fellow believers over petty doctrinal matters? Ed Bilgeway, Tonganoxie, Kansas. That's why you see the books that you see in Christian publishing world. There are some good books, make no mistake about it. There are some Christian publishers. They are fewer and far between that are trying to stay faithful and publish and print good things. But there are many who just crank out bilge. Not as in Ed Bilge way. Kind editors, in response to the book of Galatians being published, I happen to be a member of First Christian Church of Galatia, and I take issue with Mr. Apostle's article. How can he criticize a ministry that has been so blessed by God? Oh, man, this hurts. Hey, you can't criticize that false teacher because they dug 18 wells in Africa last month. And what does that have to do with false teaching? Yes, you can be doing some fruit examination, but even if somebody is doing what appears to be some good, that doesn't have any bearing on what is true and false teaching. Our church has baptized many new members and has made huge inroads in the Jewish community with our pragmatic view on circumcision. My advice to Mr. Apostle is to stick to spreading the gospel message of Christ's unconditional love and quit criticizing what God is clearly blessing in other churches. You know what? I've pretty much received that email multiple times. That's from Miriam Betty Ben-Hur from Galatia, Turkey. Now, That is satire, but it cuts so close to the bone. By the way, a publisher's note, they'd like to apologize for our rash decision to publish Paul Apostle's book on the Galatian church. Had we known the extent in which our readership and advertisers would withdraw their financial support and stop purchasing our materials, we never would have printed such unpopular biblical truth. We regret any damage we may have caused in propagating the doctrines of Christ. That is brilliant satire from Sacred Sandwich. I don't know that they're still in business anymore, but wow, they used to do some funny stuff. This funny and true. There are good publishers indeed, but there are many who are being pragmatic just for the sake of staying in business. A lesson to us all: if compromising means staying in business, it's better to go out of business. No matter how productive and helpful you think that your ministry is, if you are compromising, if you are watering down, if you are selling out, whatever pragmatic good you think might be coming from your ministry, it simply is not needed. It is more important that we are faithful to the truth than it is that we are successful numerically. Lessons from the book of Galatians. This is Wretched Radio. If you're a Christian, would you please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this video? If, however, you're a pagan, please get saved. And then like, subscribe, or share this video.